The Florida sun was blazing over Miami's shoreline that weekend, but nothing, and no one, brought the kind of heat Livvy Dunne did. With the Atlantic glistening in the background and hundreds of eyes locked onto a stage that seemed as much about confidence as it was about couture, Livvy Dunne took her place on the Sports Illustrated swimsuit runway. The crowd's anticipation was almost tangible. Phones were raised, whispers turned to gasps, and applause broke out not long after she stepped onto the catwalk. But it wasn't just her striking looks or the outfits she wore that left everyone in awe. It was the energy, the transformation, the unshakable self-possession of a 22-year-old who was once known for sticking landings on a mat and was now captivating the world in a completely new arena. Dunne rocked a cutout one-piece that was less swimsuit and more a declaration. With every confident step, she channeled a generation of athletes turned icons, sending a clear message. She wasn't just a gymnast, and she never had been. As the light bounced off her toned figure, honed by years of elite-level athleticism and discipline, she turned heads and commanded attention. But she wasn't done. In her next walk, she emerged in a daring combo, an ultra-cropped top that left little to the imagination, paired with zebra-striped thong bikini bottoms. It was bold. It was defiant. It was the kind of look that dared the world to stereotype her again. And then, as if to remind everyone of the roots she came from, Livvy dropped into a full split on the runway, as effortlessly as someone might take a bow. But what looked effortless had cost her more than the crowd could imagine. Behind that moment of perfect form and glittering flair was a harsh truth. Livvy had done it all with a fractured patella. That split, that strut, that show-stopping performance was delivered through grit and pain, the kind that would have stopped most people cold. But Livvy pushed through, smiling through the fire in her knee, knowing that pain had always been part of the deal when it came to greatness. It wasn't just about modeling. It never was. This was a woman stepping fully into a new chapter of her life, one without the routines, without the chalk, without the roar of the crowd echoing through NCAA arenas. She had announced her retirement from gymnastics in April, and just like that, a sport she'd devoted nearly 2 decades of her life to had been folded into her past. But it wasn't a farewell rooted in loss. If anything, it was a beginning disguised as an ending. Livvy Dunne wasn't vanishing. She was evolving. Livvy's journey hasn't been typical, though it's been televised, chronicled, dissected, and replayed across social media feeds worldwide. Her rise to fame didn't just follow the usual beats of Olympic glory or national titles. It was something more modern, more visceral, more connected to the world we live in now. She had become a symbol, not only of athletic excellence but also of branding brilliance. She was one of the first athletes to navigate and fully embrace the new NIL, name, image, likeness era in college sports, using her massive social media following to build a business empire that made her one of the highest-earning female college athletes in the country. And she did all of that while maintaining a presence in a sport that often demanded complete submission. Gymnastics is a sport that doesn't allow for distractions. It's punishing in its demand for precision, for balance, for near-impossible consistency. But Livvy balanced it all. The glitz of TikTok stardom, the expectations of an LSU athlete, the pressure of constantly having to prove that beauty and talent were not mutually exclusive. For many, it was a tightrope walk. For Livvy, it was choreography. The fractured kneecap was just the latest scar in a career that had quietly been collecting them for years. Her smile had often hidden the pain. Few knew about the countless hours of rehab, the ice baths, the fatigue that comes from repeating the same motion over and over until it's perfect, or at least acceptable in the eyes of judges. When she posed for her 2024 Sports Illustrated cover, she did it while nursing that injury, making every stance, every step, every scene more painful than it looked. And yet, she didn't falter. "So worth it," she said later, with the kind of grin that only someone who's already fought battles behind the scenes can wear. Landing that cover wasn't just a modeling gig. It was a cultural moment. For Sports Illustrated, it was a signal that the future of their brand was evolving. And for Livvy, it was a declaration of independence. She stood on that cover not just as a former athlete or a social media star, but as a woman in full command of her narrative. The fact that she appeared alongside names like Salma Hayek and Jordan Chiles added even more gravity. These weren't just famous women. They were women who had transcended the roles they were initially cast in. They were women who had redefined strength, sex appeal, and success on their own terms. Livvy was right there among them. It was a full circle moment, as she called it, but it was also a beginning that felt more like a thunderclap than a soft landing. Just a few years ago, people were calling her that gymnast from TikTok. They said she was more influencer than athlete. They mocked her for being too pretty, too popular, too poised. But now, with her SI cover in hand and her gym career gracefully behind her, there's little left for critics to say. She silenced them with accomplishments, not comebacks. And if there's one thing that defines Livvy's career, it's that she's always let her work do the talking. Whether it was a perfect routine on the uneven bars or a fashion spread that stopped traffic, she never needed to explain who she was, she just showed it. She knew the risks. Fame this fast, this young, and this digital doesn't always come with grace. But Livvy carried herself through the frenzy with a calm that belied her age. She was learning, growing, adjusting in real time, and doing it all under scrutiny. The attention wasn't always kind. There were headlines about her love life, endless speculation about who she was dating, what she was wearing, what her intentions were. But through it all, she stayed focused. When asked about the pressure, she once said, "I'm doing what makes me happy. That's really the only thing I can control." What Livvy Dunne represents now is bigger than gymnastics, bigger than modeling, bigger than Instagram or TikTok. She is the embodiment of a new kind of role model, one that isn't confined by traditional definitions of talent, beauty, or ambition. She can be strong and soft, poised and wild, focused and fun. She can retire from one chapter of her life and not miss a beat as she opens the next. And that duality, that refusal to be boxed in, is what draws people to her. She walks runways now, but she still walks like an athlete. She poses in swimsuits, but her body still moves with the muscle memory of backflips and vaults. She's still grounded in discipline, even when she's surrounded by glam. And maybe that's why this moment feels so important, because it shows what can happen when a young woman decides she won't choose between being who she is and being who the world thinks she should be. Just 22, she has achieved what many dream of over a lifetime. But she's not settling. She's setting a new bar. Whether it's in fashion, media, business, or any number of paths she might take next, Livvy Dunne is moving forward with the same energy that made her a champion in the first place. She's not slowing down. Not because she doesn't feel pain, she does, but because she knows what she wants and she's not afraid of the cost. She once competed on a 4-inch wide beam, balancing her entire future on it. Today she stands taller than ever, on a platform of her own making. The gymnastics mat may be behind her, but the spotlight ahead is brighter than ever. And even with a fractured kneecap, Livvy Dunne didn't just walk the runway, she owned it.